One of the things he did, which I thought was brilliant, was when our characters first transform, they don't fully make that exact sound.
Right.
It's
right.
very, very close, but it's not that exact thing. We actually use it as a story point.
Hello, Blenders, and welcome. Welcome to episode number 322 of ReelBlend, a podcast that promises to be more than meets the eye. On this week's show, we have a new horror movie to review called The Substance.
Yeah, we do.
Starring Demi Moore and Margaret Qualley, getting a lot of buzz. We're diving back into Matt Reeves' Batman franchise because The Penguin is going to be on HBO Max currently.
Yeah, it is.
By the time you guys are listening to this, episode number 1 is available to you. And director Josh Cooley is going to join us to discuss his awesome new film, Transformers 1. It's an animated movie. Arguably, I think should have been the first movie in the Transformers franchise ever because of the way it sets up the mythology.
Michael Bay would have some words to say about that.
Well, I'm not shitting on Bay. I'm just saying this is a really good intro to the franchise. We'll get into that in a minute. I want to look at the angelically dressed Kevin McCarthy and Jake Hamilton wearing their shades of white, and I am in my dark, somber looking office, my black shirt. Hello, boys. How are you? Good to see you.
Well, if you could see, I don't know how your rectangles are lined up, but Kevin and I are on one side of my screen, and you and Gabe are on the other. And both of your shots are a bit on the darker side, and then Kevin and I, sweet angels, are a little bit brighter.
Jake is glowing for some reason. I don't know why.
It's actually a beautiful day in Chicago. It looks like.
Yes, it is.
It's very rainy and somber, and it's the mood of Panthers fans everywhere. Essentially, they're reflective of the NFL.
Well, this is not the mood of. I mean, might be the mood of me and being a Texans fan, but this is not the mood of Bears fans right now.
Let's do a check-in on your fantasy team since we all live vicariously through your fantasy. How are you 2-0 on the season?
Well, it depends on how well Jalen Hurts does today. I've got a 24-point lead on the guy I'm playing, and he has Jalen Hurts tonight, so it could be close. Are you
regretting the McCaffrey pick at number 1? Hello, Jake. You still there? Jake might have froze. Jake.
Listen, we don't talk about personal stuff like that on the podcast.
You don't say that name?
Right?
Do you not speak that name?
Listen. His handcuff is doing very well.
Why don't you remind the people who told you not to draft Christian McCaffrey in the first?
The same guy who told me that Lord of the Rings is not good.
Dr. Sean O'Connell told you. Hey. I knew that leg wasn't coming back.
Yeah. Kev, how's Dan Marino doing in your...
Nothing bad ever happened to the guy on the cover of Madden.
True. Dan Marino is crushing it in my fantasy league this year.
But the only stat has appeared in Ace Ventura movies. Right. Kevin wins every week.
I actually drafted the dolphin from Ace Ventura, and I am the number 1 in my league.
Snowflake.
Amazing.
Yeah, Snowflake. I'm crushing it.
Once again, the stat has appeared in Ace Ventura movies.
Now I need to
Laces
watch Ace.
Out, everybody.
The laces were in.
Laces out.
Ace Ventura might be the best movie to have a member of the cast of Friends in it.
Wait, Courtney Cox.
Right. Courtney Cox is in it.
Wait, you're discounting Scream.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. All right.
Yeah. Come on, man.
Yeah.
Thought I had something for a second there.
Yeah.
No, it's so funny because I was like, and I wasn't actively trying to dispute it, but I was like, that's an interesting.
Well, Aniston's been in some
statement.
good movies as well too. But like
Aniston,
I don't know if I'm putting him above Ace.
Who?
Jennifer Aniston has
Scream is better than Ace Ventura.
Scream is better than Ace Ventura. Yes, I will give it that.
It's not better than Ace Ventura, but 17 Again is a good movie.
I love 17 Again.
Yeah.
It's not better than Ace Ventura.
Where's all the disrespect here for Along Came Polly? Like, what is going on this podcast?
Oh yeah, that's great. Yeah. See,
I'm sorry, but Ace Ventura is a better movie.
What was the Swiss Family Robinson in space movie that Matt LeBlanc did?
Lost in Space.
Lost in Space. I loved that movie growing up. I watched that religiously. Joey was a badass action star.
But arguably, like, I think The Breakup is a legitimately good movie.
Oh yeah.
Chicago.
Jennifer Aniston and Vince Vaughn.
It's another good one.
Yeah.
Also, another great Jennifer Aniston comedy, We're the Millers.
Oh, I love We're the Millers.
Where the Millers is good. Funny.
we're just gonna go through the filmography.
Horrible Bosses is good. Horrible Bosses is funny.
And the guy who played Phoebe's husband has been in some movies.
How far out of the cast are we going? Are we gonna go with Elliot?
How about Friends star Brad Pitt?
I was just about to say Elliot Gould. Can we say Elliot Gould?
How about Bruce Willis? Hey.
Something I've always wanted to ask the cast, like. So in in Friends, Chandler and Ross and Joey are famously obsessed with Die Hard, but then who is it? Rachel starts dating a guy who is played by Bruce Willis, and at no point do they ever go, "Hey, that guy looks like the guy from Die Hard."
But they aren't like obsessed with him though? Don't they think isn't there a part where they think he's like super cool, kind of like?
No, the girls all think he's incredibly hot.
Oh, okay.
He's the father of Ross's his daughter. Right. Ross dates his daughter.
That's funny.
Gabe, isn't your favorite movie of all time Romeo and Michelle's high school reunion?
That's a great movie.
It is a great movie.
That's a good time. It's not my favorite.
That's a cool intro.
You guys hear that sound? It's the sound of viewers exiting out of our podcast.
Wondering what the hell has happened to this week's episode.
Sean, we're doing it for the SEO. The transcripts will get us the results.
There you go. Hello, everyone. Thank you for watching us on YouTube. If you are, please hit subscribe, turn on your notifications, recommend the show to a friend. The rest of you are probably listening in your cars, on your way to work, on all the different places you get your audio needs met. And don't forget, please, guys, come on, ReelBlend Premium. It gets you an ad-free version of the show. It gets you a newsletter from me every other Friday. Check the description for information on where you can sign up. You guys need to watch the YouTube version this week, specifically for Josh Cooley's interview. Josh Cooley did it from his home office. He's a director of Transformers 1. He also directed Toy Story 4. So he came up to the Pixar ranks and has leapt over to Paramount. And has a tiki bar themed home office. Gabe got a chance to see it. It has it has the wheel of a pirate ship in it and a lot of other accoutrements. I did try to get him to sort of elaborate on some of the props. He talks a bit about a few of them, but mainly we talked about Transformers. And was
that your prime directive?
Yeah, it was my Optimus Prime. Thanks, Gabe. I appreciate that. No, we do get into the references to You Got the Touch, which is a very famous.
What did he say in regards to that question I told you to ask?
The first one that you asked me?
Yeah.
He said it's in the process.
Yeah. Dude, I'm not kidding. This is going to make no sense to anyone who has no idea what I'm talking about.
Well, not yet. They're going to hear it in a second.
It's really big.
Yeah. Well, he said he had to get permission from his wife to bring it home.
That's what he told me too.
Yeah. Oh, did he really? Yeah. Okay. So anyway, to find out what we're talking about, listen to the first answer in the Josh Cooley interview. This is Josh Cooley, director of Transformers 1, coming on ReelBlend to discuss his new film that's coming to theaters currently as we speak. Jake Hamilton, you got a chance to speak to. He's with Fox in Chicago. He was at the junket last week, and he said he wanted me to pass along that there were these massive life-size Transformers that were with you on set, and you'd promised him you were going to take one of them home. He wanted me to follow up and see if you were able to.
Yeah, it's in process.
What are some of the really cool keepsakes that you get from this journey? What are some cool Transformers swag that you now have?
Well, those statues, if you've seen them, they're like 7 feet tall and they're massive. And so I told my wife, I was like, because I know that they made marketing made 40 plus sets of them all over the world. And so I told my wife, those would be pretty cool in our living room. And she's like, we'll see about that.
Yeah, see, so it looks like, is that an office that you have there?
Yeah, this is my home office.
Yeah, and so I basically get this room behind me to keep all my stuff in. My wife says nowhere else in the house.
Yeah.
So is it a similar situation for you?
Yeah, but at the same time, she knew what she was getting into when she married me. So, there's stuff. We've got toys all over.
Good. All right. Well, so just to give our audience a frame of reference, Josh, how long have you been working on this movie?
I started this movie in 2020. Yeah, right before the pandemic. Yeah,
2020. Okay. And I mean, is that the normal time of work on an animated film like this?
Yeah, I'd say about 3 to 4 years is probably about average.
Okay. Cybertron fans are going to get a chance to see is such an incredible location. I think longtime fans are going to want to spend so much time combing the background just to sort of see the amount of detail that you guys put in. But the one thing that really caught me off guard early on is the scale. Live action Transformers movies spend so much time trying to make the Autobots and the Decepticons look larger than life, compared to human frame. And initially, Orion Pax looks small in the grand scheme of it. I'm wondering if that was at least by design initially that you wanted to make them seem human size in this world.
Well, absolutely. And the thing about the live action ones is that they're always kind of a fish out of water story where the robots are coming to our planet and we're always looking up at them, and they're 20, 25 feet tall. So but in the live action films, you always have the human scale. You always have a frame of reference for us. We know the size of a vehicle. We know that the camera is usually at the human height, looking up at the characters. And so knowing that this movie would be on Cybertron, where we have 0 people, it was important to establish that scale. And I knew I wanted to go the opposite direction from everything being kind of from a human point of view. I wanted to be from the robot's point of view, but let the world be massive. Since scale is definitely in the DNA of Transformers. So knowing that we'd have Orion Pax and D16 kind of be underdogs and be the smaller Transformers at the beginning of the film, that was our human scale, was them, and everything else was massive around them. So a lot of the shots are showing how small they are in comparison to everybody else at the beginning, and then once they start to bulk up and transform, then we start to lower the camera and really make them feel like they're massive.
When you bring people up to the surface, it's such a visual explosion, essentially. What's an area of Cybertron that you just really loved being able to explore deeper?
Well, yeah, that first shots of when they're up top there, I wanted it to be as kind of awe-inspiring to the characters and the audience. So it's kind of, you understand their frame of mind. We've been underground for the first 15 minutes of the movie, and so that was really cool to do, because we looked at I didn't want the planet to just be a big metal ball, like a big silver ball in the sky.
Yeah.
So we looked at metals that we have here on Earth, and there are some really stunning, colorful metals that naturally exist. And so we use that as reference, and talked with ILM about that and how we can use some like onyx kind of stuff and really reflective material that's really stunning and beautiful, and kind of create our own magic hour with that.
Josh, I'm so glad you brought that up. Okay, so this is a nerdy podcast. Like, this is directors come on here and they just get into the details, because I'm a little embarrassed to admit how long I spent staring at the reflections in the Transformers later on. Like, initially they start with this amazing brushed nickel kind of approach to them, kind of scuffed up a bit. And then as they evolve, they have this amazing, gorgeous, reflective quality to them that captures light, and is showing, like, it seemed other characters reflected in them. Can you just talk a bit about how much work has to go into paying attention to what is being reflected off the metals of these characters?
Yeah. Just backing up, one of the things just to remind people with a CG animated film is nothing is for free. Like, we have to design everything. It's not like, if you have live action, you show up someplace, any place with a camera, and you've got the environment there, you've got the light, you've got all that kind of for free. But in CG, nothing exists. And so everything is designed. And when we designed the Orion Pax and D16 from at the beginning of the movie, they're miners. They've been in the caves forever, mining energon. So there's, if you look really closely, they've got scuffs and scratches and marks, and all the miners have that kind of built into their texture, and that's all hand painted on there under the model.
Right.
And once they are able to transform, I really wanted that like new car, like that fresh off the showroom floor kind of look and that sparkle to it. And so they were able to have like full, just, you could see everything. And that was one of the challenges too, is like, now that they're so perfect, is that the entire environment around them naturally, reflects off of them.
Yeah.
And so that's something that, because it's in the computer, we can direct all that. And so I can go, hey, can you actually turn down the chest? It's a little bright right now. It's pulling my eye away from where it needs to be. So, and then it gets down. One of the things I didn't expect was just reflections and, just the glare, or the sun glares, or the bokehs, coming off of the reflections just hitting the lens flares. That's what I'm looking for. And how sometimes they would, be blocking character's face. So I asked, hey, can we please, kill these glares over here, or these flares, and they'd be like, yeah. So it's crazy the amount of stuff that we'd have to kind of go back in and adjust, because the natural light would actually kind of block the camera.
Okay, so this sounds unusual, I think, but like in live action, the Transformers themselves are visual effects, right? So
Yeah.
all of that stuff is kind of being built. How different is it to create the Transformer in visual effects in a live action setting versus just being able to straight animate the whole thing?
Well,
is it a similar process at all?
Well, yeah, it is a similar process. The animators that animated on this film at ILM, also a lot of them animated in the live action ones as well. So
cool.
They had that that familiarity, that all the physics of the large characters and weight and everything. They were automatically knew exactly how to do it. The thing that's different is you've got a live action plate with and you've got a real shot in live action, and then you're adding an effect on top of that or into that shot. Okay. And with this film, everything is built by ILM, which allows us to exaggerate things and to stylize it a lot more. We didn't have to match the live action.
Gotcha. There's very few things that are as instantly nostalgic as the sound of a transformer transforming. And I just want to know, like, sorry, this is basic, but like, how do you make the sound? Does it exist on a computer someplace? Did you get to recreate it?
We basically recreated it. There's I don't know the exact. There is a machine that they used back in the 80s to create that sound, and Scott Gershon was our sound designer, and he knew exactly what it was. He knew the history of it and everything. And one of the things he did, which I thought was brilliant, was when our characters first transform, they don't fully make that exact sound.
Right.
It's very, very close, but it's not that exact thing. We actually use it as a story point. So at the very end, when he fully turns into Optimus, I think the very last shot is when it's pure that way that we know.
Yeah.
Everything before that is very, very close, but not quite, because he's not fully Optimus yet.
Oh, that's really cool. I love that your thoughts had enough to make it a little bit off. That's really awesome. Jake also get a chance to speak with Chris Hemsworth at the junket, and was kind of blown away, leaving it at how much he's able to transform his voice specifically. I gotta tell you, coming out of our press screening this past Saturday, there was a nice lady who was like, what they should have had is the original voice actor deliver like one of the very last lines of it, kind of thing. But that's Hemsworth. It is Hemsworth in the very end, isn't it?
Yeah, we that was in fact, I had thought of that same idea. The big thing was, first of all, I grew up with Transformers. Peter Cullen is my Optimus Prime. He is Optimus Prime. Like, there's no getting, he's Optimus Prime. So that was when I signed on the dotted line for this movie. The first thing I freaked out about was like, oh crap, how are we going to do the voice? Because it's a younger version of Optimus. And so that actually helped me, because I was like, oh, it's Ryan Pax. It's not Optimus yet. And so that in my mind was a reason to go younger with it, to go a little more naive. Like, he can't be all knowing, he can't be all powerful and knowledgeable and everything, and brave yet. So I talked with Chris a lot about that. And when we were first talking, I was like, okay, he's got the depth to his voice, he's got that heft to it. I totally believe. And he said he'd do an American accent, so that totally lined up. And as we were doing the recording session, one of the first recording sessions, he had the Orion Pax like down, like the kind of looseness to it, a real charm to it. And then at one point, we're getting towards the end of the movie, I saw him like even stand up a little straighter and kind of puff his chest out and start to go, we've got to stand together, and like had that kind of cadence to it.
Okay.
And I was like, whoa, what are you doing right now? That's awesome. And he's like, yeah, I wanted to try play around with what I could feel like to kind of transition. And it wasn't an imitation. It was just like nodding towards that direction, meaning he will eventually become, that character.
That's incredible.
That was a really fun way to do it.
Yeah, so I got a chance to talk to Chris at Comic-Con this past year on the press line, and he started talking to me about asides, like doing asides. And what he said was, how come you can't use my previous ones? You know, like I've done so many of these for so many action films. When you're a director sitting down with these guys, and do you not want to go to an archive and use some stuff that exists already?
Well, if it was the same studio, we probably could, but you know, that's all Marvel and Disney. There's no way, you know.
Yeah, that's interesting.
And also, it's and I know I totally get it. He's he's talking about the efforts and the and all that stuff, and he's done it for everything, for every movie, of course. But sometimes you need him to be really specific. And so one of the things I did was I told him I don't want to do that with you every session. What I'll do is we'll animate the action stuff, and then you put the cans on, and then you could follow the animation and just do it live, basically, to the animation. He's like, yeah, let's do that.
Nice. Did I catch a reference to The Touch?
Oh, yeah.
There's at least one line of dialogue in there, right?
Yeah. Yes, there is. Alita says, you don't have the touch of the power. Do it right.
All right.
Yeah, we had there has to be. It's the touch, you know. That's Stan Bush.
People who are our age, or at least sit up a little bit in their seats. What is the video game that the Transformers are playing in their locker room?
I believe it's called like Battle of the Primes, and the reason I remember that is because we used to have a scene where Orion Pax and D16 were actually playing it side by side. Like you would come into the barracks and they were up close and you saw them playing. You got to get a nice big close up of the screen. It was basically Street Fighter, but with the primes fighting each other. It was a real fun moment. It really kind of sealed their friendship. But at the end of the day, it was kind of like not fully necessary.
I had to ask you about it because you do come back around to it for a second joke later, and I'll let people discover that one later on. So I wrote down the phrase, nothing bad happens when you stay on protocol. And I want to know if that's your creative mantra, or are you someone who likes to sort of break the rules and see where it takes you?
I totally believe in breaking the rules, but I think you have to know the rules and then you break them to see, to do something new and different. That's just kind of how I operate.
So what's something what's a rule that you knew going into Transformers 1 that you can think of that you broke that made this a better movie?
Well, I mean, kind of Optimus and Megatron being friends, like nobody thinks about that, and that was something that I knew if we could sell that in Act 1 and really make if the audience could really like seeing them together and want to see them together more, then it would make the end of the movie a heartbreak when and tragic when they fall apart. And so I think that's kind of the big, I wouldn't say it's a breaking the rule, but because it is part of the lore of them being at least having a connection together before they become enemies. But it was something that was brand new to bring to this whole film, to the franchise, actually.
What are some of the conversations that you had with Bryan Tyree Henry in terms of making Megatron sympathetic to a certain extent because of the struggle that he's going through in this particular story?
Yeah, we had a lot of conversations about it, and I think it was the thing that made him want to do this movie was showing a side of this character that we understand, and that we can kind of go, yeah, I get why he's acting that way, and it's not he'll go too far with it, but you understand how he's upset. And we had a version of the movie in story reels and storyboards where we went too far, actually, and the audience was kind of like, I agree with him. I agree with Megatron the whole time. Like, whoa, okay, we
got to pull this back.
We need to pull this back, yeah. And it was actually making Orion's argument better. So, but yeah, that was one of the reasons I wanted to do this movie too. Is no villain thinks of themselves as the villain of their own story, and so if we can show a good reason for him to turn, it was going to make their relationship even sadder when they break up.
Josh, it was so heartening to go to the theater this past Saturday and see so many young kids, in the theater. What I'm assuming is experiencing Transformers for one of the first times. Did you think about this film being an introduction, for a generation, getting to see these characters for the very first time? How much did you think about the younger audience coming into it? And give me a sense of why you think that this franchise keeps having new life and coming back around.
You know, it's funny. I know that. So I've worked on a lot of movies that are like for everyone, that are family films,
Mhm.
and so I never think about um I never think in my head, oh, this is a kids movie or this is a cartoon. I'm always trying to go like, what do I want to see?
Mhm.
Because I know that there are also parents that are going to be watching this with their kids, and kids are way smarter than we give them credit, for. They are just they're right there the whole time. So, um, where was I going with that? So, I hadn't thought about kids specifically coming in for the first time, but I did think about just anybody coming in. Like when I first started on this film, I was thinking, would my grandma understand this movie if she were to walk in off the street
Right.
and come into this movie for the first time, knowing nothing about Transformers, would she be able to understand it and enjoy it? And that was the goal. Was like, I want to try and get people who have not seen anything to come in and from the very beginning understand, and also hardcore fans to still enjoy it as well, um, which was a challenge, but it was something I think we hit it.
I've heard you talk about the fact that you have ideas for where the story could continue if you want to. Do you know if there's like a definitive end to the story that you would like to tell? Or is it you kind of just want to see where things go?
I don't have, I didn't plot out exactly where the next thing would end. It was always just about this first film. This first film has to work in order to make anything after that
Sure.
work at all. So, as we were finishing up this film, I couldn't help but think, oh, I could see how this could continue on, but it's not like here's exactly how it would end kind of a thing.
Gotcha. And you have a great supporting cast as well, too. I just want to get your comments about who you were looking across in the sound booth and thinking like, I can't believe I'm getting a chance to interact with this talent right now.
Yeah, the entire casting is incredible. It was really fun recording Steve Buscemi.
Okay.
He's at Starscream, and he's just a really, really sweet man, really awesome, really cool, and just down for anything. And I was like, okay, you're just gonna scream your head off. He's like, okay, yeah, let's do it. And he just goes into it. But I've seen him in everything in my entire, life. So it was just really a trip.
And what about Ham?
Ham's amazing. Yeah, he went for it, and he got the character. He's actually I didn't realize how much of a animation fan he is. Like he loves animation. I'd show him tests and everything, and he'd be like kind of freaking out, going, "That's so cool!" So it was really fun to share all that. But he's such a pro, and he was one of those people where he knows his instrument really well. So I barely had to give him any direction in terms of speed or volume or anything like that.
So they always tend to say that they pull a film out of a director's hands, that you literally could keep working on it right up until it goes into theaters. But is that the case with animation? Has this been finished for a while? Like, what do you remember is the last thing you worked on for this movie?
Well, the last thing that has been doing is like looking at the different versions, IMAX and Dolby Vision and all that. But
Okay.
the last couple shots, well, the last shot of the movie was the last thing I finalized actually.
Okay.
So
on purpose, did you keep it till the very end?
Well, yeah, a little bit. I just wanted to make sure that it looked really good,
Okay.
and it's funny on an animated film, by the time you get to the end, that's when the animators know these characters, inside and out. And so sometimes you want to wait until you want to schedule when they're going to be hitting those really important scenes, because that's when you know that they're going to be at the top of their game for the film. But yeah, the last shot is final.
All right, you say that, but when you did Toy Story 4, though, those characters are intimately familiar with the people who work there. Do you remember the last shot you worked on for Toy Story 4?
It was definitely the goodbye scene, because I knew that was going to be. We waited on that because even though they've done those characters before, there's still new characters that need to be touched, and it's just getting basically getting them warmed up for the last shots of the game, hit the 3-pointers.
That's really interesting. Okay, I got to ask about the pirate wheel behind you. Is there a significance to the ship, the captain's ship wheel behind you?
So my entire office is like a tiki room. It's a tiki room office, and so
okay,
got pieces of planes and fake animals all over the place. Yeah.
All right, final question. Then I'll get you out here on this one. What are you working on next? I hate to push you on to the next project, but do you have something brewing right now?
I got a couple things kind of in, irons in the fire, but nothing to really to announce. I'm just trying to finish this one up. But
Vacation, I guess, right?
that would be nice. We'll see.
Awesome, Josh. Well, listen, I love this movie. I thought it was great. I know fans of all generations are going to love it, and I'm so excited for it to finally hit theaters so people can check it out.
Oh, thank you so much. Yeah, it's been a blast.
Thanks, brother. Good talking with you. I'll talk to you soon.
Yep. Thanks.
All right, bye now. And we are back. Thank you so much to our good friends at Paramount Pictures and also Josh Cooley for joining the show. You guys make sure to check out Transformers 1, of which we are going to review right now. And we're going to keep it spoiler free so that you can get our reaction to it. Jake and I got a chance to check it out at different times. This is a movie they have been promoting and teasing a lot because I think they know they have a pretty good movie on their hands. It was at San Diego Comic-Con. They did a long lead press day for it. I got to see it on Saturday, and I talked to Josh about this, about just seeing it in a theater filled with families who are bringing their kids to hopefully, get introduced to the Transformers mythology. And I mean it when I say it. Like, I really thought this should have been the approach to the very first Transformers movie. So to talk about Bay and what Michael Bay did, he brought the Transformers to Earth. This is animated. It's easier to do it this way, but it takes place on Cybertron. So you start essentially on the home planet of the Transformers. And what Josh Cooley talked about, which I find really interesting, is that it begins at a place where Optimus Prime and Megatron are not quite Optimus Prime and Megatron yet. They are, now I'm going to blank on. D16 is Megatron, and Prime's name is what? Jake, do you remember?
Nerd.
I did realize I was kind of nerdy. Gabe, help me out. Optimus has a different name. They definitely do. But they're friends.
Orion Pax?
Orion Pax, yes. Thank you very much.
Of course.
Yeah. No, never mind. I am a washed up nerd who knows stuff like that. But I liked their dynamic. I really liked the fact that at the start of this movie, these two are worker bee Transformers who are essentially tasked with mining this energy substance that fuels the planet of Cybertron, and then something is going to happen that is going to pit the two of them against each other. And Jake, weigh in if you think this is interesting as well too. In a philosophically different, like there is a clear-cut conversation point to be had of whether Megatron is right to be upset of what he's upset about, right? Like, I don't want to give it away, but it's not something as simple as, it's not a black and white thing. It's like, if you watch it and play out, and actually Josh talks about in the interview that they had cuts of the movie where it was a problem that the test screening audiences were siding with Megatron.
Oh,
and they had to pull back and almost like rework the order of the movie so that people weren't necessarily on his side.
That with like the final edits of ReelBlend. He's like, wait a second.
They're unrecognizable.
The audiences are siding with Jake and Sean and Kevin. I must cut this episode to make sure they side with me.
I just re-record all my stuff. I Google it.
You mean, Jake, you don't listen to the episode and break down with notes? You don't hear the different edits that happen?
No, because I worry that if I hear your voice anymore, then I'm just going to fall in love with you even more than I already have.
All right, I'm sorry. Get the Transformers one. How did you feel about it?
I really enjoyed this movie. I thought it was an absolute blast. I mean, I'm going to be honest. I'm still like a stone cold advocate supporter of Michael Bay's first movie. And I think the third movie in his series has some stone cold awesome action scenes. And that is not just because it takes place in Chicago. I saw it long before I ever moved to Chicago. But
which one's the third one? Dark Side of the Moon?
Dark Side of the Moon. Yeah.
Is that what it's called?
Yeah. The last like hour and a half of that movie is it's all filmed in Chicago, is just unbelievable. But this movie, I feel like it had just a really great sense of humor. I thought the action sequences were really fun and immersive. I would still put it through like under the umbrella of like, it's an animated movie made with kids in mind. More so than I think obviously the Michael Bay films were. So I really had to sort of watch it through that perspective. That being said, I thought it was an absolute blast. Like I've had these very nostalgic flashbacks to watching the old 80s cartoon, sitting in front of, laying on the ground in front of my TV, sitting way too close to it. And so, but like, through the prism of like it's an animated movie for kids, and that feels dismissive or diminishing. And I don't mean for it to be.
But you know what? It's not though. It's not like slapsticky, right?
No,
like
it's not.
It's goofy.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have like adolescent humor at all in it. There's
more adolescent humor in some of Bay's films than there are, particularly Revenge of the Fallen, than there are in this one. Like this one, in the same way that the 80s animated movie did, this one doesn't. It feels weird to say, it treats kids like adults, but like it like a lot of great 80s kids movies did, it acknowledged that like kids can handle shit. Like,
sure.
It throws some heavy stuff out there, and
especially kids today.
Yeah.
Kids
so
today
I really thought the vocal performances, particularly by Chris Hemsworth and Bryan Tyree Henry, were phenomenal. They do a really good job. It's hard to, when especially like stepping in the shoes of someone like a Peter Cullen. That's tough, because then you're either going against what Optimus Prime should sound like, or you're just doing a Peter Cullen impression.
Sure. Yeah.
But I really thought that their dynamic was great, and it left me in a place where I sort of went, I'd go see another one. I'd go see another one. Even I saw this one for the junket, but I'd go see another one even if I wasn't doing the junket. I'd go just to see what happens next in that story.
It's funny that you say that, because before our screening, we got a trailer for Sonic the Hedgehog 3.
Yeah.
I've not seen any of the Sonic movies at this point.
Sure.
But I cannot believe that we're up to a third one. Dude, are they making these really fast, or is it just me? Am I not paying attention? Have you muted?
You haven't seen the first two Sonic films?
I have not seen
the
them.
first one was before the pandemic, right before the pandemic.
2019. Okay. And then the second one was like during the pandemic. I actually really like those movies.
Do you really? I mean, I think
Jim Carrey is incredible. I just think those movies really work. They're fun. It's some of the best video game adaptation I've seen. I mean, especially the first one. The first one is really good.
They make me wish I had a bigger connection to Sonic, because like I watched them. I will admit I've never seen the second one, but I watched the first one, and I realized that like they're very well made, like love letters to that game. But I didn't really play Sonic a lot growing up as a kid, so it just made it. I feel like it's a missed opportunity, because it's like, damn, if I'd played that in the same way that like I actually really loved Super Mario Brothers.
Maybe I'm clueless. I thought Sonic just ran and collected rings.
I was going to say, the game-wise, like especially the early stuff, it's more Sonic's kind of an interesting like mascot character. Doesn't quite have the like Sega. Mario cachet, but like has a really strong fan base. And I think there was like an animated series. I could be wrong.
Yeah, like all these characters that like everyone's getting excited that they're like adding. Yeah. I'm like, where the hell did that character come from?
Yeah, people love it. And
I'm kind of with you, Sean.
Sean, you are correct, because the first one came out in 2020, so 3 movies in 4 years.
I thought it was like I thought we did that junket, Kevin. Like, didn't we do that junket like in February, and then the pandemic happened?
I think that's
it was the January or February of 2019. Was it 19 or 20? 2020. Yeah, it was 20. Yeah.
And I'm going to point out Ben Schwartz, terrific guest on the ReelBlend podcast.
Fantastic.
And great Sonic.
He was one of our first, I don't think we have video for that. He was one of our earliest like pandemic guests when we were kind of everyone was not quite in like work from home mode. Everyone was still super casual about it.
Yeah.
And he just like gave us a tour of his place. He's like, I've been sitting here playing video games and trying to write for like 3 weeks.
Yeah.
It was great.
And then he shows up again later too. So the cat's out of the bag. He's the surprise guest on a Phil Lord and Chris Miller episode as well.
That was great.
Yeah, that was awesome. That was fun.
Surprise.
They had worked
together
one of my
on the after party.
One of my favorite interviews that we did during that time of the pandemic was Dr. Sleep with Flanagan.
Oh.
The 2.5 hour, whatever, how long it was, interview about the director's cut of Dr. Sleep.
We're due for a Flanagan too here soon.
Yeah, we are.
Yeah, so not to divert too far, but I do want to let's bring up quickly The Life of Chuck, which is the new Mike Flanagan, adapted from a Stephen King short story, played in Toronto, wins the Toronto Audience Award, and someone dropped a stat on Twitter that said there hasn't been a winner of the Toronto Audience Award that hasn't earned a Best Picture nomination in X amount of years.
I think it's like 14 years.
Oh,
yeah,
that's
been an incredible long run. But this is the weird part. Life of Chuck doesn't even have a distributor yet. Like, it has no release date, no distributor.
I bet it's going to be Prime.
Netflix.
so?
I figure it's going to be Prime because he just entered that deal with Amazon.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
I don't know. I wouldn't be surprised, but I'm curious if there's just some shopping that's happening.
Yeah.
Like I feel like we would hear if there was like a
pretty.
Warner Brothers does a lot of King stuff, and
Do you think that film has a theatrical audience?
I wonder if that's why we haven't heard anything, is because they're waiting to see how it's playing, if it's going to be like a streamer, or if it's like we're going to do a full theatrical run.
And I think it's the sad thing about the state. I mean, listen, I think that movies are still doing well, and I think that the doom and gloom box office stories I have a problem with, because like every business, there's ups and downs. But for a film like Life of Chuck, which I haven't seen, but for us to even say, okay, do you think that would do well in theaters, or is it not? Like, is it not going to bring in like IMAX audiences and things like that? I mean, like you want a film like that to do well, but in this era of streaming,
Sure.
I bet you those conversations are being had. Is this a film people will leave their homes for? I mean, again, Flanagan's incredible, and I bet you the movie's incredible too. I mean, this is nothing about the quality. I just wonder about a box office draw.
Does the win at Toronto guarantee that it at least gets a awards like 2 week run? Like at least we're gonna get like a 2 week.
They're still coming out with, like, they just announced that Clint Eastwood's movie is coming out and on November 1st. Like that, we don't even have a trailer for that. Like we didn't even know anything. I didn't even know it was like officially done, and all of a sudden they're like, yeah, hey, by the way, this is so, like, we're still very much. But I have a question, Kevin. I have a question for you. Do you think that the success of it ends with Us, a movie that cost $25 million and has made over 300, what is it, over 300 worldwide, is at least reminding studios that those mid-tier adult dramas still have the power to bring people out?
I think the only difference for me is that It Ends With Us was a worldwide phenomenon of a book. Life of Chuck, I don't know. I personally had not heard of it. I don't know how popular it is in Stephen King's.
No, it's not. It's an old short story.
But I think the best way to market that Life of Chuck is to remind people that, like, it's from from Stephen King, author of Stand By Me and Shawshank Redemption.
But that's what scares me. Like, would Shawshank do good today?
I mean, it didn't do well then.
This is kind of that's what's kind of interesting is like if Shawshank Redemption, which is one of the greatest movies ever, came out today, it probably would not have a huge box office. And again, this is not a quality discussion. This is a discussion. But then you look at, so Beetlejuice did 110 million its opening weekend. It's a 36-year project between the first and second. Top Gun. What are people seeing? I mean, generally, It Ends With Us had a worldwide phenomenon behind it. So that kind of made sense. But you're right, though. These dramas, you want them to do better, but like, I just don't know that the market is like, I don't know. It's these premium.
Like doing well is subjective for each of these movies. Like Life of Chuck. If Life of Chuck does 50 million in the theaters, that's great. Like,
could it do that though? Is Hiddleston a draw?
No, no, not quite like that. I've also heard he's not in the movie a lot. Like, strangely,
isn't he Chuck?
He is Chuck, but the way that the story is structured,
so this is more on the lines of like drama. This is drama Stephen King.
Yes. Yeah, very much so.
Okay,
but it's, well, you'll see.
But I think you market it. On Flanagan and King more so than the cast.
But Flanagan, we love Flanagan.
Yeah.
But do people really know who Mike Flanagan is? Like, on general audience.
I think that's a really good question. Name wise, I don't know, but I think if you put a title card up that
Haunting of Hill House
had all of his amazing work on it.
The problem is that all of his work points to something that Life of Chuck is not.
Yeah.
Right.
True.
Because if you say from Stephen King and the director of Haunting of Hill House, what you're going to tell people is it's a scary movie.
But then look at the flip side of this coin. There's a flip side of this coin.
The conversations that they're having.
But look at Coppola. Look at Coppola, right? Mm-hmm. So Megalopolis opens next week. We all know. I mean, we can all guess it's not going to do massive numbers. His name is arguably bigger than Flanagan's.
Oh yeah,
arguably. And Coppola can't. Now, we could speak to that film later on when we get to it in terms of like our reviews. but from a box office perspective, I don't know if it's going to do well.
Is Coppola a bigger name in like?
He's a big name.
No, he's a big name in like the history of cinema.
Yeah.
But like,
people know that
he's a big name to people who don't go to the movies anymore.
But yeah, what's the movie that they would point to for people under the age of 28, 25 that like, you're trying to get to go to a theater for anything?
They don't have one.
Versus,
I'm just saying. I still think you point at The Godfather, but I don't think that makes anyone go say, "Oh, okay, well then that means I got."
Versus everyone that's seen Flanagan's, series and.
I mean, dude, if Spielberg over the last couple of years, like his last 2 movies, 2 of the best films in his filmography, I would argue, Fabelmans and West Side Story. If those, and Spielberg is far more active today than Coppola is, and has far more recognition to the younger moviegoer. If he can't get people out based on his name alone, then name alone isn't working for most directors outside of Nolan and Tarantino.
This goes back to the book thing you just asked about. It ends with us. What was the last Spielberg film that did well? Ready Player One. Why did that do well? It's a popular book and people read that book. It's not Spielberg's name. So I guess it's kind of where we're getting at here. Flanagan, as much as I love that guy, I don't think people are going to go to a theater for his name.
I agree with that.
I mean, but also keep in mind, the last time Flanagan had a popular Stephen King book, it didn't do Dr. Sleep. It was literally the sequel to his most famous book, arguably.
But I would also argue that Dr. Sleep grew post-release.
Yeah.
I think it's a bigger fan base than the box office says.
Oh, yeah.
Outside of the box office conversation, this movie is an awards play. Again, back to the audience award at TIFF. And I just want to reread you the nominees for Best Picture last year. I mean, obviously, Oppenheimer won. It crossed $1 billion. It's a behemoth. Barbie, also a behemoth. But you can't tell me that Life of Chuck doesn't fall somewhere in the likes of American Fiction.
Yeah.
Or The Zone of Interest.
Yeah.
Or Anatomy of a Fall. Or
did those films do well?
Past Lives. I'm not even saying they did well, but they earned Best Picture nominations.
Right.
True. But all those films probably, unfortunately, and they're all great movies, didn't make a lot of money.
Let's take a moment to not talk about the potential downside of the box office and talk about the idea that Mike Flanagan might have an Oscar nomination.
That's a good point.
Awesome. That's awesome.
This is a little inside baseball. There's at least 1 or 2 Stephen King movies that come out every year, right? Stephen King adaptations.
I'm going to watch
King
one of them
doesn't
tonight.
King doesn't really do press for him. He just doesn't. It's just not his thing. Stephen King showed up to the red carpet and premiere of
insane.
If that's not like the ultimate compliment,
That
I mean, for Flanagan, who is the ultimate, like fan, that's got to be so cool.
Does Stephen King have box office pull?
I think so.
Yes.
I think he does.
So. He's a household name.
Does he?
I think he does.
No, but do people go to the movies for his name now?
I think he's a franchise.
I think that if you have his name and then the buzz around it is it's amazing, that gets people.
Because the thing is, you have to, unfortunately, just for sheer numbers, the name Stephen King has been attached to some of the greatest movies ever made and some of the worst movies ever made.
Sure.
And I think you just really have to drive home and remind people his work has yielded some of the greatest movies of all time. This is one of those. It did incredibly well.
Is he the most famous author of our lifetime?
Yes, by far. I think not even close.
It's a good question. I was talking to someone about this the other day. Someone like James Patterson, like these names that aren't as big to us maybe. But Patterson is everywhere.
That name is. I know. That's a huge name.
I think maybe like sheer numbers, Patterson might, but like Patterson.
Isn't Patterson an author that like kind of just sells his name to like a pre-written story?
He's
He's padding the stats. He's padding the stats.
I gotta be honest with you. If you put $1 million in front of me and said name 5 Patterson novels, I couldn't. But I bet you could stop a majority of people in the middle of Times Square and say name 5 Stephen King stories.
I would bet that there's 5 Patterson books on every bookshelf you walk into.
Oh,
you know what I mean?
They're bringing Alex Cross back. There's going to be a TV series.
I forgot Alex Cross was a Patterson thing.
What about Sean O'Connell?
What about Sean O'Connell?
I can name you 100% of the books that Sean O'Connell has written.
Yes. How many of them have you read?
All 3.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you very much. All right. That's a good time to throw it to break. Yeah. We'll be back on the other side with a review of a red hot title that needs to be on your radar. So stick around. And we are back. Okay, so if you're paying attention at all to the film festival circuit, you will be hearing about a film called The Substance. It is currently out in theaters, so you can go check it out if you would like to. It is a career resurgence for Demi Moore. It is the continuation of incredible work by Margaret Qualley, who is accepting some incredible work. She was in Kinds of Kindness. She was in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, obviously, and appears in this film as well, too. Also, what looks to be, I've only seen the trailer. The boys have had a chance to see it. An offbeat performance by Dennis Quaid, I guess is the way to put it. I know nothing about it. I'm going to implore you guys to react to it without giving away what to expect, because I kind of know very little about it, and I'd like to remain that way, but react away. Kev, you're a big fan of this. You dropped some reactions in the text thread, so why don't you kick us off?
Yeah, when Jake and I saw this, and there's a lot to say, and there's a lot of questions that we have. Jake, you're on mute.
There's a lot of late night Saturday messages exchanged between me and Kevin over the weekend.
Yeah, this movie is.
I think they all started with, "What the fuck, man."
Unlike anything I've ever seen before. So basically, the concept behind the film is Demi Moore's character is an actress who is essentially being kicked out of her work because she's getting older. Sure. And Dennis Quaid's character is like looking for the in his perspective, the new young generation to kind of bring more audience to the show that they're doing. Yeah. And Demi Moore is obviously still like stunning and gorgeous, but because of the themes in the film, her character's being pushed out, and she's like basically being treated like she wasn't this incredible huge star that she was in the story of the movie. And she comes across this like a piece of paper when she goes to a doctor, right, Jake? And it says like, you should check out this thing called The Substance. Right. And Jake, correct me if I'm wrong. I don't want to go into too many spoilers, but basically you inject it into your body, and there are rules.
There are very specific rules. There are very specific rules that you have to follow. And it basically just says, listen, follow these rules, and for 7 days, you'll be yourself. And then for 7 days, you'll be the person who you wished you were. But you have to switch back. Those are the rules. You are going to love being this other person. Okay. But when the 7 days are done, you have to go back to you. Okay. And with any good rule, there are consequences for if they are broken.
Is it don't feed Demi after midnight?
That's a great sort of parallel kind of thing. So all I'll say is that it is a very much a body horror movie, and I just had such a blast watching it. We don't really get, I feel like, a lot of body horror these days, like good old fashioned body horror, and there's a giant difference between body horror and I hate the term, but like a torture porn or the sort of stuff or whatever it is, the ultra violence that Terrifier is. Sure. Good old fashioned David Cronenberg 80s practical effects and makeup body horror.
Some of the best body horror to me is this. I think this is a big distinction between that and torture porn. Mm-hmm. Body horror is quite often the person doing something to themselves, sure, for the wrong reason, and torture porn is something horrible being done to a person by someone else. And that separation is really interesting to me, because if a protagonist in a movie is making bad decisions and then suffering as a result of it, then you can kind of ride along and being like, you did it yourself. But if they're in a really tough situation where they've been kidnapped, or they're being held someplace, I have less interest in that. Like I feel that manipulates me into feeling a certain way. So I'm intrigued by Substance for this.
So, Kevin, one of the things, talking about sort of the difference between the concept of body horror and torture porn is that as gross or graphic as this movie got, it never felt gratuitous. Like I never felt like I couldn't actually, like I had to go, oh no, God. Like I was kind of, it sounds like I was very much enjoying the grotesquerie of the whole, the whole thing is done. And again, it's not like it's not tongue in cheek. It's not meant to be laughed at, but like I had fun watching this movie as rough as it gets. It never got to a point where like I had to look away because I couldn't take what was, which happens with me sometimes with some of the more graphic, brutal Eli Roth kind of stuff.
Yeah, I was really kind of like, for me, Corley Farsha did a great job with the idea of like the practical effects, but also the use of sound design. And I'm sorry if I'm butchering her name.
No, you're that like the crunch, because you're exactly right. With body horror, the visual is only 50% of it.
Yeah, and the sound design, the editing, the way the camera moves, the way they build the world, the way that the rules are done, as you were saying with the different substance, it's really kind of well done. So I loved it. It's one of the best films I've seen this year for sure.
It's a great year for horror. We were just talking about, Strange Darling and this film, there's Long Legs, obviously. The fact that I consider a good year for horror if one horror movie makes my top 10 list at the end of the year. And right now I think I've got 3 different really strong contenders, wildly different films: Strange Darling, Long Legs, and The Substance, all 3. And I got to be honest, I don't know which one I like better. Substance or
Romulus is on my list as well. Is Romulus horror?
No, Sean, top 10 best.
Yeah, Romulus, amazing. Let me ask. I want to compare this to a film that you guys tried to sell me on, and it was a hard no, which is Titan. Is this Titan 2.0?
I was not a big Titan fan. Okay. I did not particularly enjoy the process of watching that.
No,
film.
I bailed on Titan.
Yeah,
30 minutes.
I would say do you like The Fly?
Yeah. Definitely.
Then you're sold. You're in.
Okay, sounds good.
I mean, is that a cheap comparison, Kevin? The Fly?
No, I think The Fly is a great comparison.
And this isn't a spoiler. Within the first 10 minutes of the movie, there's a up close and personal shot of a fly floating in a glass of wine. Was that meant to be a little
I think so.
Cap to Cronenberg?
So for sure. I think so for sure.
Let me ask you guys this way too early prediction in September. Any Oscar nominations you see coming out of this? Demi Moore?
I think Demi Moore and Margaret Qualley are amazing in the film. I don't know if they'll get Oscar nominations.
Here's the problem: is that you can't truly appreciate the arc of Demi Moore's performance unless you watch the whole thing.
Yeah.
And watching, I think particularly in the last hour of this movie, it goes in such a direction that I could see a majority of the older Oscar voters going, nope, and just clicking it off. And if you don't get the whole arc of everything, I mean, does Demi Moore deserve an Oscar nomination? Nomination? Yes. Unfortunately, I feel like the movie itself will just be too much of a turnoff for
industry loves a comeback story, though. They love it.
Yeah, but I'll tell you what, when you're in the last hour of this movie, you text me and you tell me how much of a comeback story they love.
What's the clip? Okay. Yeah, what's the clip, Jake?
All right. For them. All right, sounds good. There's a meme that's been pretty consistent that I've seen where it's a shot from Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, and it's Paul Rudd saying to a character, "I need you to distract Kang," and people just keep dropping in random characters. Like it'll be Paul Rudd and he'll be saying on a subtitle, "Poor things, I need you to distract Kang," and it's Emma Stone as Poor Things. And I saw one this morning and it said, "The Substance, I need you to distract Kang," and it's Demi Moore standing next to him, ready to run into action, and it makes me laugh every single time. So I'm all in. I'm all in on The Substance and the eventual crossover with the MCU. Before we close out for the week, so highly recommend. You guys recommend The Substance? It's in theaters.
100%. Yes.
Okay, good. I'm going to go out of my way to go see it this weekend. By the time you guys have listened to this on Thursday night, The Penguin is going to have its premiere. So the first episode will be available. This is going to be a weekly rollout, which is kind of fun. There's some really good. Thank you. There's some good things coming in this series. This is Colin Farrell reprising his role of Oz Cobb, not Oswald Cobblepot.
How do you feel about that?
I don't like it.
I don't like it either.
At all. Nah, it's kind of dumb. Matt Reeves has said that he wanted to ground the character a little bit more, so he took away the name, but like, fucking name.
It's his name.
Yeah. It's like changing the name of Bruce Wayne. What are you doing? So anyway, but you know, I've kind of been describing this show as The Sopranos in Gotham City, and I think
you should change your name to Sean O'Connell Pot.
Yeah, Chester Copperpot. It's you know, it's not. I'm not saying that the Penguin show is as good as The Sopranos. It doesn't reach to that level. But in terms of, so at the end of Matt Reeves' The Batman movie, John Turturro's character Carmine Falcone gets killed. He gets shot by the Riddler and eliminated, and he was largely the gangster that was pulling all the strings and manipulating all the crime bosses. And so now there is the traditional power vacuum, and who's going to fill in that space that's been left open by Carmine Falcone. And then you have members of the Falcone family. You have members of the Maroni family, of which Clancy Brown ends up becoming one of them, playing Salvatore Maroni, and he's in prison. But primarily you have Sophia Falcone, played by Kristen Milioti, who people might know from How I Met Your Mother. Is that what she was in? And Palm Springs. She was in Palm Springs.
She's the mother.
She's the mother of I never watched a single episode of How I Met Your Mother, but she's in Palm Springs with Andy Samberg. She's terrific.
That was good for a while.
She is fucking great in this movie.
Oh,
in this show. I'm not even saying that like she steals it from Colin Farrell, because I think Colin Farrell is incredible in this show, but it's Milioti's show just as much as it is Oz's, because of the character arcs that they go through. Jake and I have been lucky enough to watch all of the different episodes. Kev, you got a chance to see the first one before you did the junket. Do you think it's going to be something that you're going to stick with?
100%. I'm very excited. I think the makeup effects that Mike Marino did are incredible. And I'm looking forward to it. I've only watched the first episode, but I'm going to watch it week to week for sure.
You know what you are not prepared for? Where this show starts and where it ends.
Yeah.
It is stunning, the amount of stuff that happens over the course of the 8 episodes. So highly recommend sticking with it. It's really, really great. And it does, Jake, I wonder how you feel about this. We are seeing several examples of television shows that are trying to expand out on existing universes, whether it be the Marvel side or the Star Wars side. This, I thought, was a perfect counterpart to where the Batman left off, of just being able to be like, so without getting into too many spoilers, the show does very early address the flood that was created at the end of the Batman, and the impact that the flood has. And it just naturally continues the conversation of, all right, well, how is Gotham going to react to this? And that colors a lot of the early story. It's going to also feed into a few things that happen later on in the series. I cannot recommend this enough. I think that this is a tremendous, tremendous series. And if they were to tell me that we're doing another episode of these, another 8 episodes, but it's going to focus on another member of the Batman Rogues Gallery, I'm all in. Like, I think that that's fantastic. I want to see them continue to sort of explore that world through someone else's eyes.
I also love the show, but I want to throw 2 things out there as devil's advocate to sort of get your thoughts on, at least.
Okay.
I don't think it's a secret, because I asked about it at the junket, and the reason I asked about it is because it had already been out there. We never see Batman in the show.
Right.
That being said, what I found interesting isn't that we don't see him, because that's fine. I get it. It's Penguin's show. But he's never even talked about, never the Penguin, or not the Riddler is casually brought up in conversation. The Batman characters are brought up. The events of the final act of the Batman are very much a major part. The flooding of Gotham City, but like the Penguin was chased through the streets of Gotham City by a guy dressed as a bat, and at no point in the days following that does he ever say anything to anyone about like, hey, like as he's trying to climb the ranks of the crime lords in Gotham City, does he ever say like, hey, we have this other guy we're gonna have to deal with too?
It's my only knock on the show.
Like I get it. You don't have to show him, but you have to talk about him.
Having seen all episodes, there are too many moments when criminals are doing criminal things where someone had to say, hey, is the fucking Batman going to show up tonight? Like, we should be concerned.
Especially because when the Batman starts, it is already established that like he's like, you know, all those criminals are like doing things and like looking up to the sky and like that like he's already struck fear into the heart of criminals in Gotham. Right. So the fact that there's this whole other gang culture of different, you know, families going after each other. Well, but none of them are afraid of Batman.
And there's a lot of bravado speeches about like we're taking this back from this family and we're rising up because we're the right family. And all it needed was a line of also like, and that Bat character better be looking out for us too, you know, like, and I would be like, okay, good. At least they're aware that he's out there. He's out there. So Matt Reeves kind of said to me that like in the first movie, they made it somewhat clear that to Batman, Oz was a bit of a joke and he didn't feel the need to pay that close attention to him. But I'm like you in that I would have loved just a line or two sprinkled throughout a couple of the episodes that was just like, hey, you know, something else, Batman. Yes.
Point two, because I know we got to go. It is, in terms of language, in terms of violence, a very R-rated show. Every character drops an F-bomb every 30 seconds, which is great. Yeah. How are they going to explain that all of the people of Gotham have cleaned up their language by the time we come back around to the Batman Part 2?
Batman Part 2, R-rated. Let's do it.
I mean, that'd be great, but I just think it's weird that like the Penguin drops no F-bombs in the Batman. It's F-bomb, 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 F-bomb over the course of the Penguin, and then all of a sudden he's going to go back to not swearing.
I mean, if James Gunn is going to have his own Batman, and you know, R-rated superhero movies are crushing it, why not let's let it fly?
Deadpool. What's going to happen in Deadpool too? Deadpool can't say all the words he says in the other MCU films that he enters into, like if they're PG-13.
He's going to push the envelope though.
Yeah, but it won't be like, it'll be similar.
But you know, he'll make a great joke where like he'll censor himself and be like, oh, that's why I'm in a different movie. Like he'll say something like that.
Right.
I don't know. We shall see. So the call to action this week, down in the comments down below. Here's how we want to hear from you guys. Now that you're starting to check out the Penguin and you've seen at least the first episode, and I'm saying to you guys, and Jake is saying this as well too. Yeah. Stick with the series.
Yeah. We've seen all 8. And the finale is arguably the best episode.
It gets dark.
That episode 4 is pretty great.
Episode 4 is really great as well too. Yeah. Who would be a classic Batman rogues villain character that you also would like to see get an 8-episode run that is parallel to the stories of the Batman? I mean, Catwoman's an option. We watched her sort of venture off into another city. You could get Zoe Kravitz into a series if you wanted to. You could use another season to potentially, I mean, the Batman Part 2 isn't coming out until October 2026.
Yeah, that's crazy, man.
It is currently October 2024. You know, like you could have another series out in the 2025 if you wanted to ramp it up, and it could introduce the villain of Batman Part 2 and even bridge the gap even more. So
the Penguin the Riddler it's just surviving in Arkham.
Yeah.
Over 8 episodes and becoming best friends with Barry Keoghan's Joker.
Could do that. Yep. I would watch that. So let us know in the comments what you would like to see happen. We will continue to track the progress of the Penguin, and we have plenty more exciting movies opening in theaters in the coming weeks. We've got a lot of efforts out there for good interviews for ReelBlend. We appreciate you guys showing support to the show, following us every single week, tuning in, listening. Thanks, guys, for checking out the James McAvoy and James Watkins interview. That did some pretty good numbers. A lot of good comments about McAvoy and See No Evil that people got a chance to check out over the weekend. In the meantime, we'll be back next week with brand new episodes. So follow us on social media at Jake's Takes, at Kevin McCarthy TV, at Sean_O'Connell, at Gabe Kovach, and the show, as always, is at ReelBlend. We'll talk to you guys next week.
As always, I don't know if you know this, we were once an award show.
And until then,
Dunkirk.
The Godfather.
Night, bitch.